Did you know that marijuana can affect a person's physical and sexual growth?
Yes, that's quite accurate. In a laboratory test, female animals treated with the active component in marijuana experienced a 44% death rate among their offspring.
This is much more important than facts and figures. What kids should know is that marijuana has got more cancer-causing agents than tobacco, and a lot of young kids use drugs on a daily basis.
Actually, Michael, the fact is that 1 in 18 high school seniors smokes marijuana daily, and then there are the occasional users which account for...
Get this through your CPU. They don't care about statistics.
You know, you're right. I've got it. Just tell them illegal drugs are bad, so don't mess with them.
Illegal drugs are bad news. Don't mess with them.
Hey everyone ever, and welcome to 20th Century Pop, the show where we try to understand the present while living in the past. My name is Tim Blevins.
And I am Bob Canning. And Tim, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Where'd you get most of your life lessons from? Was it your parents? A lot of people get their life lessons from parents.
A lot of people get them from my parents, actually. My parents were very good about doling out some ideas about life. Things like, maybe put some spray cheese on that saltine, or we get the mail from a mailbox. Yeah, no, I learned a lot from my parents. Why do you ask?
Oh, just, because people pick things up from lots of different places. I think the thing I learned most from my mother was that when I'm walking down the street with a female, I should walk on the street side of the sidewalk, because I would prevent any mud from splashing up onto her shoes or pantaloons.
Where were you walking in a bog? Are you in swamp?
Close to. No, my mother explained to me that this was the polite thing to do. It started in Old West times, and it was because the streets were not paved; they were just mud. And so that's the one thing I've really held on to all these years from my mom.
Wow, I hope she doesn't listen to the show. That's depressing.
She sure doesn't.
Well, runs in the family, I guess. So you were young when you got this very gender-specified, dated, wild, wild west ruling of how life works.
Very young and scolded anytime we were walking down the street and I was not on the street side of the sidewalk, protecting my mother or whoever else I might have been with from the possibility of mud splatter. I was scolded.
Oh, and do you pass this along? Is this something that you would mention to your own children or to your partner, your co-host?
I have brought that up. I have brought that up with all of them, the children and the partner. They just sort of dismiss it. They don't seem to care, and we don't walk on the sidewalk that often. But when we do,
or in the Old West,
but when we do, I am street side.
So that's okay. No, it makes sense that you would bring it up then to your partner and your kids. Why are you bringing it up now?
Well, because I was just thinking, because we've been talking about tonight's episode, tonight's
episode, yes, the topic.
Yes, the topic. Yeah. Public service announcements of our youth, Tim.
Yes, as kids, how you learned about existence, the perils, and the etiquette, I guess.
I feel like I have held on to some of these messages more than I've held on to any of the other messages from my mom, save for walking on the street side of the sidewalk.
Sure. No, I would love to do a whole episode about that. But what we're going to do the episode about, what I think the topic is, and I think you just said this, PSAs, right? Public service announcements.
Yes.
Specifically of the 1980s, and specifically through the best educator, friend, babysitter, and sex ed device I could think of from my childhood. We're going to talk about PSAs that were aired on television.
Damn right.
The afternoons cartoons and weekend cartoons. And before we really get into it, I guess, what do you think of when I'm saying, like PSA, public service announcement? What is that? What specifically? Because we were talking before the show about what can we and can't talk about. What's your sense about what we're talking about, the guidelines for what this is?
I have always understood PSAs to be a message from an organization, often the police or the medical community, Dentists of America, trying to teach you better hygiene, proper maintenance of things, the best way to live your life, the best way to be the best you.
When I'm thinking of like PSAs that I saw on TV that impacted me from a very young age, starting at 5 or 6, one of the first ones I can think of is MGRUFF, the crime dog. You know MGRUFF, right? You know who he is.
Take a bite out of crime. That was terrible. That's not a good MGRUFF.
That was a great MGRUFF, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Don't
Tim.
sell yourself short and take that on the road. Take that, get the rights.
It wasn't gruff enough.
It wasn't MGRUFF enough. That's true. But yeah, he'd take a bite out of crime. That was his catchphrase. That's something I think we can all remember. I mean, what do you think of with MGRUFF? Who? Because he was a cartoon dog.
Yes, a bloodhound, as you earlier pointed out, off mic or on mic, but maybe not on episode.
Yes.
Yeah, he was your detective dog with his trench coat and his almost like a Detective Friday kind of attitude. Just the facts, just the bites out of crime. So
no, I thought he was, and I don't mean to just play on his word. I thought that these ads were gruff. Like I thought there was a hard edge to MGRUFF. I think some of them were actually kind of scary. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little, but like he was like this hard-boiled, tough cop who was kind of out there to tell us about some dangers. And he was a dog who could talk too, which is eerie.
Yeah, it was our cartoon version of Scared Straight.
Now, what's Scared Straight? Explain that real quick.
I believe Scared Straight, and I only know it from just the pop culture ambiance of knowing certain things. I've never actually watched Scared Straight, but I believe it's just taking kids that are possibly troublesome, maybe on the wrong path, putting them into jail with some really hardened criminals for a while, and basically scaring them into this isn't the life you want to live.
Well, that's key. Terror to horrify kids into your bidding. Propaganda, basically, is what you're describing.
And I'm saying I think MGRUFF is a cartoon version of that to some extent, the way you're describing him.
I think MGRUFF is some cartoon propaganda. I'll agree with you. I'm trying to remember, like, specifically, there was probably ones about stranger danger, which was this thing about being fearful of people you didn't know. And there's probably things about locking your doors. And there were probably, MGRUFF would probably tell you about various little crime statistics. But mostly when I think about MGRUFF, the crime dog, when I think about 80s, I am going to say propaganda, because that is kind of what this stuff was. When I think of 80s PSAs and MGRUFF, there is one thing, one topic, one thing that screams living in the 80s to me that comes up into my mind. And that concept, that idea, that one thing that I think a lot of these are going to circle around is drugs.
Oh, so many drugs.
Were there?
Apparently, it was the worst problem facing 8-year-old us, on a Saturday morning.
And MGRUFF didn't take it lightly. MGRUFF put a lot of effort into trying to educate kids about drugs. In fact, MGRUFF wrote a song, composed a song, rented a studio, and contacted 80s one-hit wonder Regina.
Real quick question, Tim.
Yes.
What was her hit?
So she had a 1986 radio hit called Baby Love, I believe was the name of the song.
Was that a cover?
I don't know. I don't know Regina, but I know that I know that as a see if this aired in 1987 as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, I had a massive crush on Regina.
From this PSA?
Clearly.
All I gleaned from Regina being in this, probably not at the time, but certainly now, is that they couldn't get Cyndi Lauper, is my guess.
I'm going to correct you there. They couldn't get Madonna. Regina actually taught Madonna some harmonies. She taught her how to harmonize in some of her songs. She was known enough in the early 80s to work with these pop stars before they were big. But Regina's appearance on radio charts with this one hit, she was kind of labeled as, I believe the phrase they used was Queen of the Wannabes. People say she was stealing from the likes of Cyndi Lauper, from Madonna. I don't know. Looking at her in this video, she's the perfect representation, but I'll say perfect packaging of an 80s pop star. She has like Lena Lovich's hair, all these weird, strange knot things. She has amazing clothes. I loved her fucking fashions. And she has a dance move that is really just standing there. Yeah, no, I mean, she kind of she sounds like and looks like 80s pop music.
McGruff here with Regina to sing Users Are Losers.
You know it's okay to say no. I'm telling you it's true. Learning when to say no.
Say no.
That's what you need to do. Learning how to say no.
Say no.
Can make a winner of you. 'Cause users are losers and losers are users. So don't use drugs. Don't use drugs.
So that was appealing to a child who had no idea what drugs were, because I will say an aspect, an element, something that I think was rampant in 80s pop music was drugs.
Yeah.
It was an aspect of the country and an aspect of the art, and I assume an aspect of the animators who brought McGruff into this. But yeah, Regina and McGruff duet on a song called Don't Do Drugs, I believe is the name of the song.
Don't use drugs, I
Don't
believe.
use drugs. And why won't you use drugs?
Well, if you listen to the song, Tim, they spell it out for you, because if you use drugs, Tim, you're a loser.
Wait, who's a loser?
A user.
Users are losers.
Yes.
But what's a loser but a user? Exactly. So it's a weird circular thought pattern where users are losers and losers are users, and that's what the song is about. It's very catchy.
Yeah.
And again, the visuals are great. It's some really nice video toaster editing with images behind her and shit.
Crazy images, too, behind her. Like, they're so unrelated to themselves or this song, but yeah,
I think
definitely.
it's the whatchamacallit advertisement from the mid-'80s just somehow got into the broadcast.
Could be.
But no, she's up there. McGruff introduces her, again, as someone we should all know. Here's Regina to tell you a little bit about drugs.
I felt bad that I didn't know Regina, because McGruff assumed I already knew her. And so I was like, oh man, I got to find out who this person is.
Did you, or did you just wait to see if I knew anything about
I
her?
waited for you. I knew you would do your due diligence there. Thank you.
Okay, I did. But yeah, this song, it's very catchy. It's probably a minute long. It's synthesizers a go-go. So of course it had my attention as a child.
McGruff on the synth.
Is that what McGruff is sitting at? Is he the synthesizer, or is that the device that's recording?
I mean,
the
it
performance?
looks like a recording board, a studio recording board, but he also seems to be playing it, because his hand motion is like he's playing.
I mean, I want to cut him some slack. He's a talking dog. He's sentient and has a self-awareness. But yeah, McGruff is duetting with her. But this song is, it's based around an idea. I mean, you can get it. It's McGruff. So you're like, well, he's going to tell us something about the hard streets and life. And he brought his friend. Ooh, that's interesting. And yeah, she's basically telling us that a loser uses drugs. We just established that. Like, that's, I don't know. What do you think of that as a slogan? I know it rhymes. I know it's catchy. Users are losers and losers are users. ... Don't do drugs.
I mean, I think it's effective for certain age groups, and I think it was effective for me at that time. Were you
thinking about doing drugs? You were fearful.
I was kind of fearful of drugs.
Now, where did that come from?
It came from television. It came from these commercials. It came from these PSAs. It came from episodes of family sitcoms where drugs were involved. And so, yeah, it was really burning into my psyche. And it stayed with me for some time, to be afraid of drugs and afraid of people who use drugs.
So that was before you saw this particular commercial?
It was around this time, I would say. Maybe a little bit before, but certainly this commercial helped.
Helped generate this image of fear.
Of fear, but also that drugs weren't for me. I don't want to be a loser, and I also would like to be a winner. And so I'm going to stay away from those drugs.
So what were drugs? Like, what were they? What for you to, as a child, think, I don't want to go near drugs? What didn't you want to go near?
I didn't want to go near, probably at that time, people who smoked cigarettes. That's probably
That was the drug that this song is about.
I didn't know. I knew pills were drugs, pills that weren't
Like what kind
medicine.
of pills? So like aspirin, Bayer, Tylenol, Advil.
Like I knew that there were some pills that were good for you, and then that there were some pills that were bad for you. And I knew that smoking was bad, and I think I knew that there was other things to smoke besides cigarettes. So yeah, it was all fresh and new, and I'm glad PSAs were there to keep me up to date on the latest drug crazes.
So they were bad, though. You're saying all these things were bad.
Yes. You didn't find them to be bad?
Well, I mean, at the time, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, as a kid, I had a fear of drugs, just like you're saying. Drugs were killers. That's
Right.
what was drilled into me. And because of that, because of this idea, that the reason I'm asking what were drugs is it was just say no to drugs, steer clear of drugs. What are drugs? Well, on a cartoon, it's some pill, some guy in a hat that's pulled down over his eyes is trying to sell you. And, on a sitcom, it was probably, marijuana, I guess is
probably.
the drug. But I mean, we had drugs
joint.
around. A joint could be a joint in Theo's book. I think on Blossom, I think the older brother went into rehab because he smoked marijuana. So yeah, it was drilled into me that they were bad, which kind of makes an ad like this or a song like this kind of smug.
It's smug and catchy as all hell.
It is catchy, and I like that. Embarrassingly, I sing the song to myself a lot, but I don't believe it.
You can't believe it. Something that is that upbeat is hard to believe.
Something with no nuance is hard to believe. That's the thing. There's no option in this song and how it's being presented to you for understanding. It's the thing, like drugs were vague to me. They were just this thing that was out there with no concrete. Like I didn't know what drugs was, and that was kind of the idea of the time. The Reagan administration, the Reagan era, had this whole say no campaign, and that I don't know, just to be told to say no to something, to be like say no to this, doesn't that just elicit, and rightfully so, more curiosity?
Sure.
I mean, and it eliminates any level of complication in that I did take aspirin. I did take Advil. You go to a doctor, you're going to be prescribed what? Drugs.
Yeah.
And in these commercials, there was no room to ask that, no question for that. It really was just shaming you. You're a loser, or your friend is a loser, or this person who maybe is having some issues, and the only way they can cope is to numb themselves for a few minutes to further exist in a world that is far more complicated than your stupid Castle Grayskull play set. Like, you're told that they're a loser. It's a weird illustrative purpose through an incredibly catchy song that you can then go sing to your friends and sing to your parents. I mean, you have two daughters. Do they go through rampant drug education? Is that part of their schooling?
Not that I have become aware of. There's more schooling for the parents that I'm getting invited to, and another seminar, and come to this evening's talk about vaping. I see that more.
This is a good example. So vaping is kind of the new demonized practice. I mean, I don't know. I'm sorry. What's your stance on vaping? I don't mean to be assuming here.
I'm not a fan of vaping or inhaling anything myself. But I think it's a strange thing to just want to do, because it's I don't know anything about it. I'm sure people have learned more about it than I have because they have an interest in it, but I do not. So it just seems weird to me that you would want to inhale that. And the amount of vapor that is exhaled just boggles my mind.
Now, are cigarettes, do you have that same feeling about, say, cigarettes? I know I used to smoke, and when we hung out, were cigarettes as bizarre and incapable of comprehension a thing as vaping is?
Not as bizarre, just because I grew up with it. My mother smoked for most of my childhood. And she finally quit. What a
loser, huh?
She was, man. I mean, I constantly was trying to get her to quit as a kid because television told me it was not healthy enough.
Television told you that the person who was working her ass off to raise you was a loser. The provider who worked hard, I'm guessing on your life here. This campaign is telling you to call her a loser. Because you're saying she smoked crack cocaine, right? Did I hear that part right?
All crack cocaine all the time. No, it was only tobacco, and so I don't know that I got that from this particular commercial, but there were other tobacco commercials.
Sure. Okay.
PSAs.
PSAs, as we have to call them to make the title of this episode relevant. But so you go to these talks as an adult. I guess is the one thing that's kind of a disconnect here. So your kids aren't getting any exposure. Maybe this is good. Your kids aren't getting exposure to, like, by the way, this is bad. Society calls this bad.
They might be. They're not getting PSA exposure. I can tell you that. That was one thing I thought about as we were preparing for this, as I was watching these PSAs, and I was just thinking about what kind of PSAs do they have today? And because we have the streaming platforms, we don't see PSAs. My kids don't really watch a lot of live TV, and so if there are PSAs going on, we don't see them.
Oh, because I feel like they exist still. Do they not stream them on YouTube or something? Are they not ads that are targeted to your kids if they're watching stuff on YouTube?
I haven't seen them. Most of the ads I see are for games but not drug-related PSAs, no.
So they're not getting programming telling them to be wary or fearful of something. Are they wary or fearful of drugs? Are they aware that drugs are a thing?
My oldest is. She's talked about it. She's nervous about a lot of things.
Where did she get knowledge about it from?
Again, I think it was from sitcoms and cartoons and that sort of thing. And me. I think I'm doing an okay job trying to make her aware of the dangers of the world.
Listeners, hashtag us in at Bob ? Is he doing a good job raising his kids? You are expressing an observation, I don't know if it's a concern, that your kids are not getting televised service announcements. They're not getting PSAs. They're not getting...
There's a little bit of a concern there, yes. It wasn't until this week, but as of this week, yeah, there's a little bit of a concern.
So was the only place you were getting exposure, education, and maybe some misinformation, by the way, on these topics, was it only coming from TV for you when you were a kid?
Mostly.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I think my mom had a drug talk at one point, but it was a one-time thing. You know, it wasn't over and over again every week, every afternoon.
Did you need it every week, though? Did you need that kind of conversation over and over again? Do you need to be hit in the head when you're trying to do something else with a reminder that, hey, by the way, that guy's a loser? What guy? Paul McCartney from the Beatles.
I don't think it hurt me. Did I need it? I don't know if I needed it all the time, but nice to see it once in a while.
But do you want to inundate your kids with it? That's what I'm saying. Like, you have the ability, I assume.
I don't want to necessarily inundate them with it, but I'm just now realizing that they don't have even this casual, commercial PSA that comes up that they can just sort of see and kind of remember. And we're going to talk about a couple others that some of these things actually stuck with me for some time. As
like catchy jingles or as worthwhile life lessons? As
worthwhile life lessons.
Like what? Why don't we, because I think we're expressing our stance on this. I think the Just Say No movement, the MGRUFF, users are losers movements, I think that was bullshit in the 80s. And I think it was reductive, and I think it caused arrogance.
But did you think it was bullshit at the time, as a child?
No, because I was terrified. Because I was told that all drugs will kill you. That's not effective.
That's what they wanted. It was effective for me.
That's what they wanted, because that's a power play. That's a political power play. Let's scare kids into something. Let's not educate them. Let's scare them. Like there would be a massive difference between broaching and eventually working towards, because it's more effort. Because in a 1 minute song by one hit superstar Regina, you can't explain how drugs work and how some are helpful and what some of the side effects are, and right. You can't do all that. I get it.
Right. And you're right. They're not naming the drugs. They're not naming the illegal drugs that they're referencing. So I see how you're.
Nor are they exploring them. Nor are they looking into them. I mean, you and I drink. We both drink pretty heavily. Is that a fault? Is that a danger? Is that something you don't want your kids to see? Do you hide your liquor in the house?
No, I haven't been doing that.
Well, yeah, because why would you? It's because
But I don't drink to excess around them.
Okay, but these commercials don't express the idea of excess. They express the idea that these things are bad.
Right.
That these things are not even bad. They're just there for losers. I guess, and the reason we should move on to another one in a moment is because I think there are multiple things. Speaking to children can work a lot of different ways. But when you're playing on, here's a catchy song, here's an animated dog, because hearing an animated dog is far more interesting than hearing your local cop or just, or a guy in a funny looking cop suit. Like I'd rather see the talking dog because that's fun and exciting. And this song is great. And it's not Leni Lovich, but it looks like her. It's not Nina Hagen, but it looks like her. I'm loving this. But so in that setup, you've got the kids' attention. All you're giving them is, you know what? Drugs are bad. Don't ask me any questions because I drink, but drugs are bad. I mean, and you're right. As a kid, I don't think I was thinking this is bullshit, but I was scared of something, and I remained scared because no one could explain it to me. No one broke it down for me. No one wanted to broach this idea of, or even express that, well, there are multiple levels to it. So if I saw somebody smoking, I think you were kind of expressing this with your opinion on smoking. My thought is that's bad, not, hey, this person is complex, complicated, and they made a choice. A choice, by the way, I still made in college. I've done some drugs. I've smoked. I drink. So it's not like these PSAs forced me into a lifestyle. I got older and understood some of the aspects, the fallout, the risks, and the benefits, and embraced the ones I wanted to. I just think 1 minute of scaring a kid during this cartoon you enjoy, during this afternoon period where maybe you're unattended and by yourself, or during Saturday mornings where you're getting a break from school, to throw in this horrifying, scary kind of, the world's awful, is kind of a cheat. It's kind of a shit thing to do.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I understand that they only had those 30 seconds or 60 seconds to do it, so you got to get right to the point.
Well, is that the point you get to in 30 seconds? Some things can't be discussed in 30 seconds. Like, is there a PSA or a series of PSAs you could think of that maybe did well with the time period they were in? You're only giving it 30 seconds or a minute. That's lazy if you think that's going to solve the drug crisis, as it was called. But does this format work for something? Like, is there another, getting off of Regina and McGruff's duet for a minute, is there another public service announcement that maybe does work within the allotted time period we're talking about?
I think one that I think worked well and also kind of stuck with me, at least the catchphrase for it, where the NBC, I'm pretty sure it was produced by NBC to go in between their Saturday morning cartoons, was the ones to grow on.
Hi, I'm Michael Gross, and I'll be right back with One to Grow On.
Yeah, One to Grow On. I remember that really clearly. It was it was set up. You get this little window, and there's a celebrity who introduces themselves. This was like during commercial breaks in between cartoons.
Yeah,
and you'd have a celebrity. I'm Mindy Cohn from Facts of Life, and I'll be right back with One to Grow On. And then I think they cut to another commercial, and they come back. Yeah, it's like a little skit with kids acting out kind of a morality question, like, I'm going to steal this stapler, or I'm going to run down the street without looking, or I'm going to shower with this toaster. And, as a kid, you can kind of even anticipate, well, these are bad ideas. And then right when the bad idea is about to transpire, it cuts, and then suddenly you're with the celebrity who's also watching this little sketch on the TV, and the celebrity is telling you like a life lesson, like, you know what, it's dangerous to take a toaster into the shower. Have the toaster going while you're in the shower, and you come out, there's bread ready for you, or whatever it is. So the celebrity they pick celebrities that we know, David Hasselhoff. I remember Lisa Welch Blair from Facts of Life being on one, Punky Brewster, like celebrities that you like.
Jason
teaching
Bateman.
Jason Bateman, teaching you a little lesson or explaining it, and then they would look back and the little sketch would finish out, and the kids, it would turn out, would do the right thing, as it's called. They'd make a good decision and move on to something. And yeah, these played during our Saturday morning, so they were integrated into all these cartoons, and they were positive, they were upbeat. And they weren't morality issues so much, I guess I was just saying they were, but they were kind of like, here are some suggestions on building a better sense of yourself, or here's some ethical things that we can all agree on, being nice, being polite.
Yeah, not to pick on that kid. The best, make sure you pay attention when you cross the street, things like that.
Do you remember these? Like, you growing up watching these, did these impact you?
The thing that stuck with me, again, it's the repetitiveness. So we've seen Regina over and over again. It's the same thing.
The McGruff Regina duet? Yes.
Sorry, I always leave out McGruff. But the thing that stuck with me when I was rewatching these was the cartoon opening.
Because for the one to grow on.
Yeah, because that was the same every time.
I want the ball. Chucky, don't ever do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the kid eating the sundae and turning into a pig and then somehow morphing into a vacuum cleaner or something.
A real Animal Farm 2049.
Yeah. So that stands out to me, and I think that makes a bit of a point here. It's like these one to grow ons, you didn't see them over and over again, the same ones over and over again. There are quite a few different lessons, which is great. And I think they have a short-term impact, but the long-term, it needs to have that repetitiveness. Otherwise, you're going to kind of forget about it.
I do remember this, like my brother and I, because we would watch cartoons together. Even as a 5 or 6 year old, 7-year-old, whatever age we were at, we thought these were silly. Like, he and I would make fun of the format. So I don't think any of the lessons actually impacted me. I remember it vividly. I clearly remember the segments, but
the segments are memorable. And the line, that's one to grow on. That's kind of entered our pop culture pantheon. I think people reference that all the time.
They do, but they're making fun of it. Like, no one's saying, like, I learned my lesson. I'm not going to break the antenna off this car, like that kid who broke the antenna off the car and the one to grow on. I mean, if your target demographic for these things is a 7-year-old, and you want to be impactful, you want to make a difference on that 7-year-old's life. And if that 7-year-old is making fun of it, is it impactful? Is it successful? And who's Punky Brewster to tell me anything at that point? That's the thing. Like, I like One to Grow On. I have a fondness for it, but they're the same fondness I have for the Follow My Nose Toucan Sam commercials, the same fondness I have for that McDonald's Christmas special with the ice skating. Like, I like them in my head because I remember them in the memory that they were playing.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they were impactful because, again, how much of a life's lesson can you get out of context in 20 seconds?
Yeah, not much.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Like I said, I have no particular memory of any single segment, but it's the bit itself, the idea of the one to grow ons, that I remember. But what they were telling me, I have no recollection.
Saturday morning had a lot of good educational programming. All the Schoolhouse Rocks, which I don't know if those are considered public service announcements. Those were educational. They were catchy. They were everything these other ones were. Catchy, of the time, animation aimed at kids. But they were imparting something on you. I learned what an adverb was and promptly forgot. But, I can recite the opening of, the We the People in order to form a more perfect union. I can recite that thanks to these. Like, I learned stuff from those.
Right.
But if it's trying to teach me something, like, there are a lot of animated segments Saturday mornings about health, about nutrition.
Yeah.
There was the character that I was saying was called Timer. You were telling me he's a piece of cheese. What's this one that we're talking about?
This is, I always refer to it as the hankering for a hunk of cheese.
That's
PSA.
right. That's a good way to, yes.
This is where you have, I guess, an Old West cheese blob with arms and legs telling me that cheese is a good snack. And you should consider it the next time you're home from school and hungry.
What's something you can make with cheese?
Why, you can put cheese on a cracker, Tim. And put a cracker on top of that cheese, and you have a little cracker cheese sandwich.
or a wagon wheel. I believe it was called a wagon wheel. No, and that's true. And it's
what they call the wagon wheel.
Here's a great little snack to tide you over till dinner. If you want something delicious and nutritious, cheese is a super snack. Look, a wagon wheel. When my get up and go has got up and went, a hanker for a hunk of cheese.
It's questionable nutrition, because how much cheese should you be eating? But those are so memorable to me because they were catchy, they were songs, and it was something I could do. I could make a wagon wheel.
You could make a wagon wheel. And then this is the one that I had a question about. It's like, I mentioned this one to view and to talk about, but then I was like, but is this a PSA or is this more of a commercial? The clip that I saw doesn't tell you who it's brought to you by. Like a lot of these will say, brought to you by the Church of Latter-day Saints, or, we know the one To Grow On's came from NBC. This one didn't have the ending, but I feel like it came from America Cheese Council or something like that. Like possibly an organization that wants you to buy more cheese. So I feel like they're giving you a healthy advice, I guess, but it's really specific to cheese. So to me, it sounds like more of a commercial.
Yeah, because it's commercial television. It's explaining to you how nutrients work, sort of. It's making you aware that maybe you shouldn't be just eating,
It's no Mr. Goodbody, though.
It's no Slim Goodbody, that's true, but not everything can be a naked man with no skin. Like really naked, because he has no skin even.
No skin.
Here's something I was always thinking. A lot of these animated segments on Saturday mornings with kids, there's no adults. Even the one To Grow Ons that we watched, because we watched a few to talk about, there's adult voices in them, but you don't see the adults. I mean, these are kids existing in their own world, which, of course, is narratively fun.
Right, and if there is an adult, it's usually the one that's trying to get you to get in his car and drive somewhere.
Yeah, it's a pervert. So
yeah.
Adults are perverts, is the lesson there. But, I mean, I think there's something to be said about seeing kids on their own, because, I mean, I didn't necessarily have this situation, but like latchkey kids who have to come home because their parents have to work multiple jobs on their own, they do have to fend for themselves. So imagine watching this cartoon and this thing is telling you, you're home alone, but, is there cheese in that refrigerator? Are there 2 crackers somewhere in the house? No, they're out working. No, but are there 2 crackers you can eat? Well, put them together. Call the wagon wheel, have a fun time, and have a snack. Like, that is a public service. You're helping out these kids. There are a lot of memorable Saturday morning cartoons about, don't drown your food in syrup, or eat a carrot stick. I don't know what the songs are, but things that are looking out for kids' nutrition.
Yeah.
And they're running during cartoons, which I love, but also a lot of people claim cartoons are, glorified babysitters. They're not. They're more than that, but I get what they're saying. So that's a great time for these commercials to air. I think that's the perfect public service announcement, to be honest, because you're not putting anyone down. You're trying to help someone out. That is missing from the majority of these other service announcements that are supposedly helping kids out. Like at the top of the show, at the start of the show, or earlier in the show, you had mentioned the Church of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
And you were just talking about how, who brought us these commercials. And a series of commercials I vividly remember playing during weekdays, during, like whatever episode of Bionic 6 or whatever I was watching, would be these live action ads of that were brought to you by the Church of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, they would always say at the end. And there were these little kind of, usually to music, a song, kids, once again, encountering something in the world that we're supposed to learn from. There were just these little 30-second, 1-minute ad spots put in there. The one I remember, it was called Just One Lie. And it's about this kid who's coming home who wants to go to some movie, and he's thinking to himself as he comes home from a long day at work. I don't know what this kid does, but and that's something I couldn't relate to. I never walked in the home by myself, so that's a little lost to me. But this kid is thinking to himself, steps in the house, is like, I really want to go see this movie, but I don't think my mom wants me to go to this movie. Well, how can I get to this movie? Oh, I know. I'll tell her I'm going to a friend's house to work on some homework. Or something. The kid walks in, and he walks into his house, and the lights go out, and he's confronted by this Bob Fosse gang of guys in like black top hats and tap shoes,
dancing
and
away,
singing, menacingly at this kid about the escalation of lying.
When you tell one lie, it leads to another. When you tell 2 lies to cover each other, then you tell 3 lies. Oh, brother, you're in trouble up to your ears. So you tell 4 lies to try to protect you. Then you tell 5 lies so folks won't suspect you. Then you tell 6 lies, and then you collect a life full of worries and fears.
They surround him. They chase him around his house. One of them freakishly touches his face. And they shame him through song. This kid who's walking home saying, maybe I'll tell a lie. They're singing the song, tap dancing, and they actually say to this kid in unison, so it's 5 strange guys in his house, telling him that you'll be suspected, rejected, disliked, and you should. That's the fucking lyric of the song. This kid's social standing falls apart just because he's considering going to see Can't Buy Me Love when I guess he shouldn't. And so they're singing the song and they're getting closer to him. He freaks out. He runs outside, runs into his mom who's coming home with some groceries. And this kid admits to her this lie that, in truth, he never told.
Yeah.
But he tells her, I was going to lie. I was going to lie about going to the See Can't Buy Me Love with Patrick Dempsey. But I was going to tell you I was going to my friend's house. I'm sorry, Mom. I'll never go see Can't Buy Me Love with Patrick Dempsey again. And the mom... This is the most believable part of the ad. The mom, like us as an audience, kind of just stands there wondering if her son is nuts. Because he didn't do anything wrong. He thought about lying, but he didn't. And the reason he didn't was he was shamed. Once again, similar to the Regina and her song at the start. These tap dancing guys are shaming this kid, telling him his life will fall apart because of one bad decision. I mean, it's a 1-minute ad, which I get.
Right.
But like the Regina one, there's no area for discussion. It doesn't leave any space.
There can't be. There's no time.
There's no time, but you've
got to get to the heart of it. And the heart of it is that you shouldn't lie. And they made that very clear in a short amount of time with dancing, tap, flashlights, the whole shebang.
Oh, there were flashlights. That is true.
And did it work for you?
No, nor should it.
You just lied all the time?
No, but I wasn't. No, but this didn't make me not want to lie because of how they're handling it. This kid is like an 8-year-old or 9-year-old kid. And this commercial is setting up an ongoing system or an ongoing lack of redemption. This one lie will destroy you. God forbid if I had lied about something at school, came home and saw this commercial for the first time and hadn't been able to tell my parents that I was thinking about lying but actually lied. This commercial sets up a scenario where from that point on, I'm fucked. It's so full of itself, and it's a church. It's the Church of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. So it's so holier than thou, telling you how to be a better person, but not in any way giving you space to learn. You're not learning from your mistakes. You're being told, don't make the mistake.
Oh, that's true.
And I don't feel like that helps. You're just asking me, did I not lie? This commercial didn't make me decide not to lie. This commercial scared me as a kid. I was terrified of this commercial. Very catchy song, by the way, and some very nice dance moves, but just scary because there's intruders in his house.
Yeah, well... It would frighten me. I don't remember this one from my youth. No, this one didn't pop up a lot. Certainly I saw Church of Latter-day Saints PSAs, but this particular one did not stand out. But the fact that he's opening his door, they're not even really dancing in his house. It's like this weird cavernous hallway with these barriers that they jump out of. So it's not even like he entered his home. He entered some other dimension.
Sure.
Yeah. That was the most frightening part. The Broadway dance and singing and stuff didn't frighten me too much.
It's quite good. It's some great dancing.
Talented.
But you remember some of the Church of Latter-day Saint commercials.
Yeah. I have a sense of them. Again, I couldn't tell you for sure what segments there were.
Sort of like one where kids make a pizza for an old man.
Okay. That sounds familiar.
I think there's an opera one about who threw this baseball. That sounds familiar.
Yeah. And I saw the opera one just recently as I was searching these, but I didn't remember that one.
I think Alfonso Ribeiro was on the opera one.
Wait, wasn't that a Pepsi commercial?
I think he did 2 commercials and then got silver spoons. Do you remember the Church of Latter-day Saints part at the end, right? Where the kid's like, that church.
That's the part that sticks out, the repetitive part.
Is that weird that a church, because the only other church I can think about advertising on TV in the 80s is the Church of Scientology, with their Dianetic ads. Is that odd that the Church of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, bought time during your Jason the Wheeled Warriors episode or during Zubilee Zoo, and that they were pushing this at you? Like, the fact that that's the part you remembered, is it some weird religious presence to that? Did that ever strike you odd as a kid?
No, I mean, it never did strike me odd as a kid. I guess I haven't even thought about it today because I know I had mentioned earlier that my kids weren't seeing PSAs. The one PSAs that I do recall seeing of late, I think, are Latter-day Saints PSAs. The one where a woman gets off a bus and then a man follows her and chases after her, and you think it's going to be he's going to mug her, but in fact he's bringing her the purse that she left behind on the bus. Little PSAs like that I do recall seeing recently, and I think that's still Church of Latter-day Saints, and that doesn't bother me too much. That doesn't seem weird to me. I guess now that I'm thinking about it, it's weird that you don't see it from other religious organizations. Why aren't they stepping up their game?
Do you want to? Do you want suddenly there to be just this uptick in Catholic guilt, or this? You know, I'm not going to go through all the different religions, but
sure. I mean, I wouldn't be bothered by it too much if the lessons were as generic as don't lie or be kind to strangers, that kind of thing.
But does that do anything? To have gone through the production, the choreography of singing, don't lie, it'll make you the worst person ever.
I think it
Is that
does.
how you teach that lesson to a kid?
I don't think it's the only way you teach that lesson, but I think it's a helpful reminder at that age.
So a PSA can kind of be a helpful reminder, something a little simplistic.
Yeah. Some of them can teach you lessons that stick with you for life that you may not have even heard of elsewhere.
Such as
the greatest PSA in my mind that I have ever witnessed. It's the
we already talked about Regina.
No, the Bugs Bunny one, preventing you from self-harm in your kitchen.
You know, kids, the kitchen ain't a playground. There's a lot of danger hiding in here. That dangling cord can be a disaster. Especially if they grab hold and yank me.
My cord should be up.
Hey, you said it. Keep dangling cords out of reach.
This is the one where Bugs Bunny, as a cartoon character, is in a kitchen, which is a real kitchen. So it's not
live
a cartoon.
Action.
It's live action, and he talks about all the dangers that lurk in your kitchen, and all of the things that he's talking about come to life in cartoon form and teach you a lesson. And I'm going to leave those lessons to you, Tim. What were some of the lessons from this commercial? Because I'm pretty sure you remember these.
Well, I know that there's a cookie jar misplaced.
Precariously placed on the edge. Yeah.
And I only know this because the cookie jar itself says to the viewer, I should be over there. And then hops with that self-awareness to the other side of the counter. Yeah. So that's one. I think there's a tea kettle or something, electric tea kettle maybe.
With a dangling cord.
Dangling cord, which you could trip in, right? Or you could get caught up in.
You could pull it down on top of you.
Oh, yeah. But fortunately you don't, because I think the tea kettle tells you that my cord should be up and swirls the cord around safely.
Yes.
I think also because they're in a kitchen, the stove is on. The burner's on.
The stove is on.
And I think
Yes.
there's this pot of hot water boiling, of which I can't do the impression of. I think it's something like, I'll just wait for a child to put his hand in the
It's more
bed.
Yosemite Sam than
Is it?
It's a little gruffer than that. Yeah. It's like, yeah. And so, yeah, and it turns its handle inward to prevent any child from accidentally reaching up and grabbing it or walking past and knocking it over. And Tim, these were lessons that stuck with me.
So these worked for you. This commercial
That
worked
pot
for
handle
you.
one especially. Oh, this one worked for me so well. I always am constantly turning those pot handles in, and I never would have known to do that. My mother never talked to me about that. My grandparents never spoke to me about that, and I only learned it from this PSA.
Well, that's helpful. It's probably helpful that it's Bugs Bunny, because who doesn't like Bugs Bunny? Well, Elmer Fudd doesn't. But, okay. And I guess you proved my counter to this commercial, I think you probably stepped on and disproved, by animating the tea kettle, the cookie jar, and the pot, and having them solve the conundrum. Does that take the responsibility off the kid?
No. It just shows you the best way to do it.
Have the cookie jar move itself.
Yes. Definitely.
I should be over there.
Animate that
Is what
cookie
the
jar.
cookie jar. Okay.
No, yeah.
No,
I
this
mean,
is the very memorable. I used to love this commercial as well.
This is the
and
best.
It is one of the first ones I feel like played for a while, stopped, and I remember it coming back probably
nice.
like late junior high and being like, this old thing, this is great. No, it's stuck with me. It's memorable. And it's a worthwhile public service announcement. Again, maybe the word choice of what a PSA is the faulty thing, because it's educating kids at home, some situations where they could really get hurt. Home, I don't know why they'd be cooking on their own, but if they were, whatever it is, it's a nice protective route. So yeah, that makes sense, right? That makes sense as a public service announcement because it's looking out for the kid.
I know we don't necessarily have this one on the list that we're talking about, but they're not all for kids. One of the more famous ones is geared toward adults, although I think kids saw it more than the adults did because I saw it nonstop. And that's the you taught me how to, who taught you how to do this stuff, PSA.
Oh, the one where the dad comes home, his kid's on his bed, got his headphones on, probably listening to that hit new Regina track, which is really the only Regina track. And the dad comes in with, is it a cigar box?
A cigar box full of paraphernalia.
What kind of paraphernalia?
I have no idea. Drug paraphernalia, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's probably a bunch of rubber bands in there, maybe a tarot card.
It was random. It was pretty random.
I bet there's a 2-pack of ho-hos in there, or ring dings, or king dons. But yeah, so what happens? The dad comes in, kid's on the bed.
Dad's pissed off.
He is pissed off.
Your mother found this in your closet. Where did you get this? Who taught you how to do this stuff? And the kid, trying to give excuses at first, keeps getting cut off with questions, and then he finally breaks. He's like, "You all right? I learned it by watching you."
He doesn't just break. He has a break. He screams. This kid suddenly acts and yells, "From you, all right," like you just said. I learned it from watching you. And that's interesting. This is for the adults, huh? Because they cut to the father, who does his best work there, kind of in shock. And kind of, I assume, watching his kid through a drug-induced haze, where he's thinking, do I do drugs?
It's yours?
No,
My mother said she found it in your closet.
I don't know. One of the guys must
have what?
Look, Dad, it's
Where did you get it?
Dad,
Answer me. Who taught you how to do this stuff?
You, all right? I learned it by watching you.
It's a weird mixed message of, I'm going to berate my kid. The whole do as I say, not as I do bullshit.
Right.
But you think this was aimed at adults?
Yeah, because it ends with the famous line, I guess it's not that famous, parents who use drugs have kids who use drugs. So it's named at the parents. It's saying, you, the parent, pay attention to this commercial because I'm trying to tell you that if you're using drugs, you're going to end up with kids that use drugs. So you, parent, stop using drugs.
But it played during afternoon shows. It played in a kid's demographic. And here's why that's insidious. And I think it's very intentional, because you might be right. This might be a PSA that one could be like an adult and be like, you know what? I am going to stop eating these ho-hos. But I think the structure of that, I think that, like, what kid doesn't want to talk up against their parent? What kid doesn't want to take a stand? I think these commercials were meant to make kids guilt their parents. I think it was supposed to set up a mindset where the kid is like, wait, my parents do drugs. I got to get them off of it. I got to show them a picture of a diseased lung or John Belushi's headshot or something. Like, I think that there was an intention in this of putting parents out, of making parents a villain. And you don't see parents in the other ones, really. Or you see them a little bit, but this is making kids turn their parents in. Turn on their parents, judge their parents, shame their parents.
You've turned me. I am coming around to that. Yeah, that totally makes sense now.
That's gross.
That's what it's about. That is gross.
That's gross. They live bullshit on TV, except instead of commercial products, it's this weird, again, shaming. Most of these public service announcements, or at least the ones about harmful drugs and your parents' stash, and well, the next one we're going to talk about, they're all about, you are the worst for doing this, for even thinking about doing this. And if you have a friend who does this, their name is probably Adolf Hitler. I mean, these things have no space for individual survival.
Right.
They're like literally the last one I think we're going to talk about is another famous one. I think we both knew it, from 1983.
Yeah.
It's called Drinking and Driving Can Kill a Friendship. That's, I think, the tagline of it. And what's this one? How's this one play out?
This one has you joining a group of friends. Hard to tell how old they are. I would presume as a kid, I thought they were teenagers, but I think looking at it now, they look to be in about their 30s. They're leaving.
I think the actors are. But
yeah.
I think they're supposed to be in their teens. Teenagers can drive.
But they're all drinking beers, walking out of somewhere, if the house party perhaps, or maybe it's a bar. It's kind of hard to tell. The rockin' tunes of Michael Jackson's "Beat It."
Right?
Yeah.
Famed 80s child perpetrator, allegedly, Michael Jackson.
At that time, that would have drawn me right in. It's like, oh,
the Beat It.
It's Beat It. What's going on? What is this about? And they're talking about going somewhere else. They've been drinking. They want to go somewhere else to continue drinking. And one of them, I think, is trying to ask the other if he's okay to drive. And he's like, yeah, what's a couple beers? Puts the key in, turns the ignition, and then there's like this just sudden change from this live action
like
thing
a flash,
to just this
like
dark
a nuclear bomb.
It's a flashes, and now you're in this dark. You're still in that car, but now everything is, all the people are skeletons, just skeletons, right? Not even burned flesh, skeletons.
Yeah, because he was drunk and turning that key. I think the idea is, and I think they say this: if you don't stop your friends from drinking and driving, you're as good as dead.
They don't quite say that.
I think they do. I think that's the line.
Did they? The tagline is drinking and driving can kill a friendship.
You're right. Okay. Sorry. I'm just reading my notes.
But I'm going to play it back here.
Just get in and talk about it.
I've got to go home.
Oh, come on, Carrie. We're going to a new place.
She wants to go home, right? Let's go.
Whoa.
You okay to drive? Yeah, I'm fine. You sure?
Relax.
What's a few beers?
If you don't stop your friend from drinking and driving, you're as good as dead. Drinking and driving can kill a friendship.
Oh, they do. They do say you're as good as dead. Holy crap. Yep.
Without going anywhere, the car doesn't even move. I think they're in a garage and the door is shut.
Well, you don't need to move because you're as good as dead. You will be dead. That's I get it. Yeah.
And I think they cut to that scene where they're toasting. It's a human hand with skin on it, and then a skeleton's hand, and they're toasting glasses. Is that this one?
This one, no, they're shaking hands.
They're shaking hands.
At the end of that one.
This is a lot of pressure that once again leaves no space for discussion.
Right. And should there be, Tim?
Yes.
For drinking and driving? There's times that maybe that's okay?
No, there is no offer of how you would stop your friends from drinking and driving. There is no discussion of what you would say, what you would do. That's the issue I have with catchphrases like this, with these hardline lessons is, and we said it earlier, they're just fear-inducing scolding. And they don't give you any actions to actually take. They're self-congratulatory with how doom-saying and clever they are. But it's like, politically, like we all know Trump is a fascist dickhole, but saying that sternly to the people who agree with you doesn't impact anything. What impacts that would be concrete steps you could take to take action so you can understand why he's a dickhole and also how to resist it. Like the giving some help. I need that. Posting on Facebook the feelings I feel don't help, but having some assistance in dealing with them would. So just having this ad where it's like, your friend turned the key, you're a skeleton. You did it, you're dead. It's like, all right, so what do I do in that situation?
Yeah.
There's nothing, and it's too scary now to ask about because I'm sorry, but all your flesh is gone. It didn't burn off. It just stopped being on your body because your friend drank and then turned a key. Like that's some fucked up sorcery. That is horrifying imagery. That does scare me into thinking drinking is awful. Okay. So there's that. But now what if that situation comes up? What do I fucking do? I'm as good as Bones, and not the television show, but just Bones, because there's no suggestion of what to do.
True. But again, they didn't have time for all that, sir. They had to get to the point.
But
the point is you shouldn't drink and drive.
But that doesn't mean anything if that's the point. Why not? Because you'll be a skeleton.
Correct.
Is actually not what's going to happen. You'll get into an accident. You'll kill someone. You'll kill yourself. You'll kill your friends. But again, so that's scary.
Okay.
And that's horrifying. And yes, maybe that scares a kid off of drinking. But what if you have friends who do drink? Or what if you're in that situation? How do you deal with that?
Right.
And also, what if you're at home and your parents are taking a couple sips? Are they skeletons now?
They good as dead if they get in the car, Tim. Yes.
But that's not true.
To the extent of the commercial, that's not true.
Have you ever had a drink and then driven your family somewhere?
No.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You don't like skeletons?
I don't like dead families.
Oh, all right. Well, so you got that. Okay, so this commercial saved one person. I just... There's a problem when your way of, and this is in quotes, which are great on a podcast, when your way of education is to induce fear, when your way of teaching and expressing something is inducing fear, I know it makes whoever came up with it feel good. I know that. When you do something that's so shocking, like, I'm going to tell you how it really is, it's going to blow your mind, you can't handle it, that's so fulfilling. Because you've got people quivering in front of you and you just blew their minds with reality. So I know what that feels like. So the companies that are funding these ads, the Reagan administration, maybe the actors who are in it, they're feeling really good about themselves. But in feeling good about themselves, they're kind of forgetting that the whole purpose supposedly of the money that was allotted to make this commercial, and maybe what we should do if we care about kids, is you give them you give them options. You discuss, you make it real. And these commercials, with the exception of my cord should be up, these were not helpful. These were damaging because they just made me scared to enter the world. And they're conflicting too, because my parents drink. Their friends drink, but this ad is making it, there's nothing in this ad that's saying there's a drinking age, there's responsibility, like worded a little differently maybe, but just drinking and driving can kill a friendship. You don't get anything out of that.
But see, that's what they had to work with. They had 30 seconds to work with, Tim. And yes, it terrified us, but at least in the short term, it served that purpose because
Did
we
it?
were scared. Yeah, because we were scared to do it.
So, what was there a situation that you encountered where your friends were all drinking and you decided you weren't going to get in the car?
No, because my friends were never all drinking. I think because maybe because of these PSAs, consciously or subconsciously, tended to be friends with people that didn't do that. There were a group of people that I knew did drink that were underage and drinking. And I avoided those people.
Because they drank.
Is it because of these PSAs? Possibly subconsciously. Will I ever know? I don't know. But yeah, because they drank at that age, I thought of them as trouble and I stayed away.
But that's a faulty lesson.
Now, did that help me? Maybe not. They could have been. It is, but it's all they can do in a 30-second.
But why? No, it's not all they can do.
You got to save like the discussion for your episodes of Family Ties.
We should do an episode on that someday because there's issues with that too.
Okay.
I just feel like if you're doing it for a moralistic reason, for raising kids, for concern about the future, then you owe it to find a way in that time period to offer information, because otherwise you're doing a half-assed job. You're finding the theatrics again to make it scary, but you're putting the responsibility on the kid to really find out why it's scary, to really find out how it works. And also the kid's not getting any better if now it's on you to figure out what to do if the situation happens. If you don't want to be a skeleton, don't get in that situation. All right, I'm in that situation. I don't want to be a skeleton. What do I fucking do? Well, the commercial didn't tell me, so I'm using my own wits again. I think there was this not weird, but just unhealthy demonization of things. Drugs are bad. That didn't want to take the time to explore, one, are drugs bad? No, actually, a lot of them are not. They're used various ways, and some of those ways have less health reasons, but that doesn't mean we eliminate them. But two, there was no conversation that was necessary because of the many subtle levels and things like this. Because if a kid is going to a commercial, whatever they're getting out of that commercial or public service announcement, there may be no way to ask. I mean, what are you going to sit at the dinner table and say, Mom, Dad, do I turn into a skeleton in the car? And what do I do to avoid? Like, it's so cut and dry. I sound like a lunatic right now, but it's so, I don't know. I don't think these were very successful. One to Grow On was maybe kind of there. My cord should be up, sure, because that actually sounds like you walked away with something with that has stuck with you, and your cords are always up.
My cords are up.
But and you're saying you don't see them for your kids anymore. I wonder if this is why. I wonder if people have just grown out of this very entitled 80s behavior. Coming out of the 70s, where I think drugs were becoming more recreational than they had been. People were experimenting. And yes, there were some deaths from it. There was also some art that came from it. And there was also just some social times that came from it. But however you want to talk about it, I think the 80s I think these were rich people putting these commercials together. And they didn't want to take the time to really do the work, which I don't think that they work as service announcements given that space, because I don't think they knew what they were trying to get across.
I see that. And now, Tim, let's present our version of the best kind of PSA. See, that's me kind of setting up a segment that we don't have prepared yet, but I think we should prepare our own PSA the right way. Let's do it the right way, Tim.
Well, I mean, what is that, though? I mean, like,
that's what I'm trying to find out. It's like, how much information can you pack into a 30-second television spot?
That's probably not the way to do it, then.
No.
I mean, like, you have your daughters that you care about. Would you show them the MGRUFF? I don't know if we already said this. Would you show them any of these as the lesson to learn?
I showed them the MGRUFF one this morning, in fact, but for comical purposes.
Yes, okay, that's very different.
Yeah. And I think, I can't remember exactly what she said, but my eldest said something about those crazy 80s.
Right, okay, so the time and context might throw it, but do you're saying that they're not seeing these public service announcements your kids? Do you want them to see versions of this?
I don't think I would be put off by it. And they're not seeing it because they're not watching, broadcast television. I'm assuming that there's PSAs on broadcast television. I don't know for sure anymore. But I wouldn't be put off by them watching it. And if I'm watching it with them, then maybe that starts a conversation.
But you don't want to start that conversation on your own.
I do start that conversation on my own. But this is also a helpful segue as well.
The public service announcements.
The public service announcements. I'm not going to knock them so much. I get exactly what you're saying. I do understand that, but I still don't knock them. They got it. They do what they can in that short amount of time.
I love that these things exist because they're part of my childhood, but I don't think they serve the purpose. And I think if there is a purpose out there, the people making them owe it to do it differently. Like my cord should be up, that Bugs Bunny piece.
Well, as we're wrapping this up, Tim, I really do. Of all of these that we've looked at, and there was a bunch more that we shared with each other that we didn't talk about. I do hope that you include in our show notes, Chow Daddy.
Oh my God, Chow
Everybody
Daddy.
needs to see that.
Chow Daddy, yes, I hope so here on this show. Yeah, I will connect to Chow Daddy very quickly. I'll say Chow Daddy was 1987 PSA that aired, I think specifically in Massachusetts, with these kids.
This was the first time I witnessed Chow Daddy, and I'm so glad I have. Yeah.
Chow Daddy, he's portrayed by an actor named David C. Waite, which, if my research is correct, and I'm unsure if it is, but if it is, he has appeared in both How Stella Got Her Groove Back and Star Trek Into Darkness. But the character Chow Daddy, which is not listed on his IMDb page, it was a PSA about eating poorly. I think it's in support of school lunch.
I think so.
Which according to Chow Daddy, consists of pizza, spaghetti, burgers, and desserts.
Oh, yeah. I'm tired of candy, tired of gum, tired of hunger, and food that's no fun. I'm tired of pretending I don't like spaghetti, but school lunch keeps me roaring ready and rock steady. Pizza, spaghetti, burgers.
With Chow Daddy in your school cafeteria, it's the fun place to be for lunch.
Desserts.
He's sort of the kind of mascot you come up with like on the set. Like I feel like there was a wig there and some grease paint. And they brought someone to moonwalk.
Yeah, it's like somebody was like really a fan of the musical Cats and found a way to kind of work it into this commercial. For some reason.
I'm glad they did. For some reason. And it's not to help out kids.
No.
But you know what can help you out? You know what might help you out? You know what would be good publicly and would serve you? Is if you visited 20popcast.com. That's the website for this show, 20th Century Pop.
It's where you'll find a link to Chow Daddy.
You'll find a link to Chow Daddy. And in addition to Chow, yes, you'll find a link to Chow Daddy. Yes, and his empty calories.
Sorry to throw you.
I'm so thrown now by Chow Daddy. But yes, you'll find a link to Chow Daddy. You'll also find the most recent episode, this episode, streaming on the main page. You'll find links to all of our past episodes. You'll find options to subscribe to the show. If you like the show, I would encourage you to subscribe to it. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Stitcher. We're on Google Play. We're on Spotify. Subscribe to us. If you have the option, you can leave us a little review. That would really help us out. If you like the show, leave a little review of some things you like about it. If you don't like the show, you can do that. Helps us less, but be honest, you can do that. You can follow the show on
It could
Instagram.
help us, though.
I don't know if it would help us if somebody really hated the show and it was like, well, I don't like the guy who always pretends he doesn't know how to end the show. Like, that's not going to help us. That's going to make me feel bad. Because he's talking
That's true,
about
but there
me.
might be other criticisms that might be helpful.
What might those criticisms be? Less Chow Daddy, more Chow Daddy.
Yeah. Talk louder, do more cartoon voices. I don't know.
Maybe don't talk. I don't know. Yeah, that's true. I'd more cartoon voices. Yes. So either of you would help us out. You can follow us on Instagram at 20popcast. You can follow us on Twitter at 20popcast. Bob, what can they do about you?
They can follow me on Twitter as well at RHCanning. They can also follow my soon-to-debut online comic strip at Bob Issues on Twitter.
How soon? Because this goes up. We're recording it now. But this goes up at the end of February.
I'm trying to get it. Well, it could be out now. I don't know if this is end of February. It could be out now. I'm trying to get
end
it
of January.
towards.
Sorry, end of January.
Yeah, I was. So yeah, no, I was shooting for February.
Okay, well
So-
this will come out before then. But yeah, I
but follow
definitely
it now so you won't miss the first one.
They can follow you on Twitter now, like you just said.
Yeah.
Instagram links are in the show notes. We'll be back in 2 weeks. What I've got? Can you end this? I've got nothing because I'm so worked up over what we talked about this week.
We'll be back in 2 weeks, and we won't be using because we're not losing. Wait, that doesn't work.
It's hard, right? It's hard.
Those are talented people. Talented people to put those together.
Well, everybody wants to use, but nobody wants to lose.
You did it much better.
I did it okay. I just took the lyrics from that Regina hit. Not the one that was on the charts, but the one she did with the dog. Did McGruff ever come to your school?
No, but Ronald McDonald did.
Okay.
To teach me how best to cross the street.
What? That's not his thing.
Well, that's what he did in my school.
Was it just a clown?
It was at the high school. We had to walk to the high school to see that.
So you were in your teens.
I was in elementary school, but the high school was just like
across the street?
6 blocks up the street.
Jesus, you hadn't seen him yet though. How did you do it? It seems very risky.
We had the teachers
to cross the street. You had what?
We had the teachers there to guide us. It was good.
All right.
We were fine.
Well, then why did you need the clown at that point?
Because I wasn't always going to have the teachers there, Tim.
Now always going to have the clown.
No, but the clown taught me a good lesson.
Okay. No, he wasn't allowed at our school.
Oh.
He touched a kid. No, I don't know. We never had Ronald McDonald come by. We had the Wendy's come by. That's what we called her, the Wendy's. She came to our school. And also a giant hat with a potato under it came to our school as well from Arby's.
Oh, my goodness.